Welcome, everyone, to episode 81 of Kowalski Analysis. I am your host, Rob Kowalski, and this is a podcast designed to help you navigate the wait and become the person that you're looking for is looking for. So do me a favor before we jump into the conversation and before I tell you a little bit about our guest, drop a comment. Let me know that you were here. Say hi, hey, or hello. And as always, please, if this is your first time watching one of these or listening to one of these, please let me know where you are residing. What is the closest city to you within, 30 to 50 miles? And I will do my best to connect you with some other like-minded people that are in your area doing life together currently. What do I mean by that? They're socializing, they're serving together. Some of them are Christians and they're worshiping together and they're going to church together and just doing life. The City Fam is on a mission to end loneliness, and they are our current today's episode sponsor is City Fam, and we have our next vision call on March 11th of this year, next month, March 11th. It's a Saturday. We're going to be doing these every month on the second Saturday, and that's just basically where we're going to unveil our plans, that download that God gave us on how to end loneliness and help people all over do life together. We had about 55 people on February's call. We're expecting them to grow over time, and we have now dozens of groups all across the United States that are currently active, meeting up with each other, and it just makes the journey so much better and so much more enjoyable when you have people to do it with. So check it out, March 11th. Join our Facebook group if you want to find out more about that. You can go to friendswithbetterbenefits.com. It's 100% free, and you can join our Facebook group and you can learn more about all that's going on right now with City Fam. Okay, with no further ado, let me tell you about our guest for episode 81. It is Gable Price. He is the lead man, the front man, should I say, the lead singer for Gable Price and Friends. He's also known as your mom's favorite band. I love that. And he's an artist, songwriter, and producer. He was born in the wild, wild Midwest of the USA. He currently resides in Redding, California, and his catalog spreads from pop to country to rock and roll to Christian contemporary and so on and so forth, as he would say. So with no further ado, let's bring in Mr. Gable Price.
What's up, man?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for coming on.
Oh, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Are you in Cali?
I am in Redding, California. Yeah.
Okay.
Wild northern California.
Awesome, man. Well, I know we're bringing you in for the Cult Classic Brewing Show. I'm really excited about that. Definitely want to talk about that. Do you know anything about? Yeah. Do you know anything about City Fam?
I don't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I will. I will tell you about it. We have some members in Redding, is why I asked. We actually have a group that's gone out and done some things together. But yeah. So I don't know which direction to go because there's a lot of things I want to talk about. I'm pretty excited. But for the City Fam was basically a group I started. So really quickly, I'm a promoter now. I promote Christian shows, as you know, because we're bringing you into this Cult Classic.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Brewing show. But back in the day, pre-Jesus, and actually after Jesus too, for some time, I was a club promoter, and I met the Lord, and was 100% convinced that he was who he said he was, and I did this radical 180. I got baptized in the Holy Spirit is what happened, and life got really boring. And basically, I was going to church on Sundays, and I was, read the Bible a couple times, and I liked the things I was learning. I thought the church people were nice, but they just weren't doing a lot. And I just found myself every Friday and Saturday sitting around with my thumb on my butt. And I was literally abstinent for 6 years. So you can imagine I was very determined to do this thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And eventually I backslid because I wanted to be around people again. I wanted a social life. I went back to the bars because that was the only place that anything was going on with people that I could relate to. Made a mess, rededicated a few years later, went through the same thing, bored, lonely every weekend.
Yeah.
Figured I got to figure this out. So I started this group called City Fam. So we're not really faith-based per se, although there are a lot of Christians in it. And we just do pretty much every weekend there's something going on. We volunteer together, we socialize together, we worship together, and it's cool because like for you coming into this brewery, like
man.
When we booked you, I was like, dude, Christian music and craft beer. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah. That's the way right there. I'm excited. It's gonna be good.
Well, I'm very impressed just the fact that you would play, because like, so part of my dream with City Fam, and and I didn't know which direction I was going to head when we started talking, but as I want to open a bar in
Oh,
Baltimore.
sweet.
Yeah, it's not going to be a Christian, anything. Although my vision was, we might do karaoke on Friday, cover bands on Saturday, and then have somebody like you come in on Wednesday and play a faith, somewhat a faith act. Mercy Me, Jeremy Camp, close on Sundays, have church right in the bar. Like, it's not going to fit in anybody's box. We're going to serve alcohol. Like,
I love it, man.
Alcohol is not a sin, but
Yes,
yeah, dude. So like, let's go down that road, because I think
let's do it, man. I'm down.
yeah. So like, cause I feel like so many people think that, okay, I'm a Christian, and I did too. I'm a Christian now. I can't drink. I can't, have a time, or really, I can't have fun. Like, I guess, where does that come from? Where do you think?
I don't know, man. Probably Facebook. Just in terms of, I mean, at least in my generation, you go on Facebook and everything is demonic on there. Everyone's just like, oh yeah, this is demonic. This is demonic. The bars are demonic. This is demonic. And so I feel like a lot of legalism kind of gets ingrained in you in a young age.
Sure.
I mean, even hearing like a grandparent or someone else saying to you, yeah, you can't do this. This is completely and utterly wrong. I didn't tell any of my relatives that I watched the Harry Potter movies, let alone read the books, because that was demonic. And so I think there was a lot of things. I think a lot of young Christians just kind of grow up scared of doing something wrong.
Sure.
And so I can't imagine what it's like, because I grew up in church.
Yeah.
And so I can't imagine what it was like to be saved and then brought into the environment. Like, what is this? Everything is a rule.
Right.
I always knew the rules. So a lot of it was unlearning for me, unlearning the legalism. I can't imagine what it was like to try to learn it.
Right. Well, yeah, that's what I mean, because I had a little bit of exposure to church, but it was never at home. Like, my mom really, she wasn't religious. And so it didn't really stick. And, when I became a Christian, for me, it was like, because I did get baptized in the Spirit out of the blue. It wasn't like nobody touched me or prayed for me.
Yeah.
The Spirit got poured on me. I prophesied. It was really weird, actually. Like, you imagine flying down a road at 100 miles an hour on your way home every day, and you think there's no cops, and then all of a sudden, you realize they've been there the whole time taking radar, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
I felt caught. I felt like caught. You know what I mean?
Oh, but I know what you're saying, man.
Stop.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So have you played any bars before?
Yeah, I prefer them, actually. Like we when we were first starting to tour, and we're still fairly young to it. We got our initial break into, I don't want to say any, like, popularity. I would say we got our initial burst of interest during COVID. So Fraction Heart, our first full length record, dropped in June of 2020. And so the first time we were able to tour, we couldn't. And everything before that, no one would have come to the shows. And so it wasn't until I think our first show out of California was like August 2021. And so it was over a year since the album dropped. That was at a Christian college, which was fun. But then we started doing some church runs of like, okay, we'll hit a church here, and then a university. And what we found is like we enjoyed the environment of the church, but we were used to it. It didn't feel different enough compared to what we feel like our music is. We don't feel like it necessarily fits in the four walls of a typical building, Mm-hmm. And so, especially the environment of our concerts, we're like, we want it to be tight, we want it to be sweaty, we want it to smell, we want the floors to be a little sticky from the drinks and stuff like that. And so once we hit the King's Kaleidoscope and John Mark tour, we started hitting more clubs, more bars. And I just love it. The environment is so fun. Mm-hmm. You can tell people are a little bit out of their comfort zone, which is kind of a good thing in a concert setting, just because if you're in someone's home church and they're not used to jumping around and they're not used to, kind of going crazy, you kind of got to take them out of it. And so it's like, you get all these people come from different walks, and it feels like a bar is just a great equalizer.
I love it.
Like, not many people are used to being here, especially because a lot of our fan base, at least on this last run, was like 18 to 30,
mm-hmm.
18 to 25. And so like not a ton of exposure to it. And so I love it. I'm very excited to check out Cult Classic.
Yeah, for sure, man. So let me just shameless plug right there. If anybody wants to come to the show, I'll put the link for the tickets in the show notes. You can use discount code CityFam, all one word, CITYFAM, for $5 off your tickets.
Let's
And
go.
we're gonna be taking a group from Baltimore up there. It's so where you're performing is over the Bay Bridge, so it's about, I don't know, 30 to 40 minute drive from downtown Baltimore. But we're gonna take a group up there and do a little road trip. It should
Oh
be a
man,
really
that's
good
awesome.
time. Yeah,
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I know the technically Baltimore. I grew up in. I always tell people I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, but I grew up on the state line on the Indiana side. But everyone there says, yeah, we live in Cincinnati, and so it's like, well, it's technically Indiana, technically Baltimore. The show's technically in Baltimore, but
yeah, that's what most people do, because everybody knows. If you say Baltimore, if you were to say we're going to be in Centerville, people are like, what is that?
yeah.
But yeah, so look, guys, if you can get to Baltimore, I know there's a lot of people in different states. If you're willing to drive down, come on down. We'll make a weekend out of it. Because you're performing. It's on April 2nd, and I believe, what day of the week is that? Is that a Sunday? I think it is, isn't it?
See.
It is. It's a Sunday. Okay, so yeah, come on Friday, stay a couple nights, and we'll go up together on Sunday. You can go to Epic with us in the morning, and it'll be a great weekend. I
It's gonna be
promise.
awesome, man. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
I never
So
know what day it is when we're on the road. So you asked what day it is. I won't be able to tell you what day it is the day of the show.
I'm sure I can't imagine what that life is like. I want to talk about that. So yeah, for me, the bar idea really came about because I came out of that scene, and I was like, I was looking for this place because I just wanted a social life. I wanted to be around some people that I could relate to, and I didn't want to sin. And
Yeah.
and there was nothing, man. There was like Christian coffee shops were the closest thing I could find, and they were super lame compared to what I was used to.
Yeah.
So, and I've
They're
often
all
thought about,
named after biblical anecdotes and stuff like that.
yeah,
There's a Hebrews in Reading.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had often thought, I'm like, I'm sure these guys got to be tired of performing in churches. I'm sure they would love to come to a bar, especially if they hear
yeah.
there's people meeting Jesus in this place. Are you kidding? Come on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
super, super excited about it. So how did you get to be a musician? Was this an aspiration as a kid, or how'd you get into this?
Yeah, I mean, music was what I really always wanted to do. My dad was a worship pastor at a Vineyard Church in Ohio. And I mean, so from a young age, I think I told him when I was 12 that I wanted to do what he does. And then so I would like apprentice him at the church and sing on Sundays with him. And then I think just as I got a little bit older, I was like, oh man, if I want to do this as a living, I got to figure out a way to make money. And so I just decided to get away for a bit. So I signed up for a ministry school, moved out there when I was 19. Kind of got every no possible when it came to music. Didn't play guitar on the worship teams, didn't sing. But I had played in bands like my whole life. I had a cover band with my brother when I was 13. I played guitar in like a surf rock band like the years prior to me moving to California. And so music was kind of ingrained, and being in a band was kind of ingrained. And then when I moved out to Reading and everything was worship teams, I was like, man, this is so different. There's no concert culture here. Everything is worship night culture. Not a bad thing. But from growing up in concerts, I know that there is a different feeling about being at a rock show than anything else. A different sense of euphoria, a different sense of you just feel invigorated. You feel like you're a part of something. And I missed it. And so I think and I never had really the intention of us being like a rock band when I started it. I just wanted to make an EP. I didn't have anything else to do with music. And so me and a couple of the guys from my school, Adam and Daniel, were like, let's make an EP. And so we raised some money, underpaid some friends, and we dropped the EP in like 2018, and it did so much better than we thought. Like there's still a song from it that's in our top 5 on Spotify. And it cost, significantly less than time and thought, and effort, and money, and than what we've released since. And it's so funny that it still stood up. But yeah, I know we just started from that and just missing shows.
What's the name of that song?
Oh, that's Dead Man. Dead Man was the first song we ever wrote.
I'm going to go back and listen to it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, throughout the course of making our first EP, and then after that releasing, us deciding, okay, are we a band? Like, yeah, we're a band. Played some shows, realized that our favorite part of making music was playing it live. And so we realized that the music we were making wasn't really the music we wanted to play live. And so we kind of shifted genre to to lend itself more to rock or even indie pop stuff, just more jumpy, fun stuff. And so that's where our next album came. And then we just keep progressing to what are we enjoying right now, musically, sonically, concert wise, what do we enjoy about concerts? And so I feel like Gable Price and Friends is kind of like a labor of love in the sense of music. We're in the same way that you're, you said it's a nonprofit.
Yeah.
It's can't be fit into any boxes. I think we've really lent ourselves to the same belief of like the only box we can fit ourselves in is do we enjoy it?
I love it, man.
And that's what feels really important.
Yeah, it's definitely a different sound. It's different than any other Christian music I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a big part of it is just we haven't super been inspired by Christian music over the years.
Yeah.
Especially as of late, I have a lot of friends in it. I would, but it's not what inspires our sound. We were inspired by the Killers, Coldplay. I personally, on the Christian side of things, was extremely inspired by Switchfoot and Reliant K. Big early 2000s rock bands, Christian rock bands. And so a lot of it, sonically kind of shifted out when radio, or at least Christian radio, became more cinematic sonically, more stomp clap, more like these epic sounds as opposed to these rock songs with these deep thought out lyrics. And so, yeah, I think it sounds different from everything else, mostly just because it feels like it's pulling on something from the past and making it a pretty modern thing.
Who are you listening to right now?
Oh man, my favorite band, and they're a little filthy, and so viewers be warned, but they're a band called Gang of Youths. And Gang of Youths is sweet. They're originally from Australia, but they're out in London. Really cool rock band. I love the new Harry Styles record. It just gets me. And then I've been listening to a ton of Colony House. They just released a new record. And then there is a Christian artist named Benjamin William Hastings. He originally sang the song So Will I by Hillsong, but he just released his own solo record. And it's some of the most brilliant writing I've ever heard inside or outside of Christianity. And so it's really inspiring me right now. But those are the three.
Yeah. So Ben Hastings, Gang of Youth, and what were the other two?
Harry Styles and Colony House.
And Harry Styles is the used to be in the band, right?
Yeah, he was in One Direction.
Right.
He was a pop star, but he's released 3 records now. And then his first and the third record that just released this year are my two favorite from him. The second one was great, but I think it was just really inspiring to see him in a extremely boy band pop sound to his first record had so many like rock ballads, just so outside of the norm of what a pop star should do. It was just really inspiring. And so I think everything he does continues to inspire me.
Who have you played with that you've enjoyed the most?
John Mark McMillan. He is unbelievable. He's an incredible person, like amazing artist. And his whole band was just really inspiring. We also hit a show. We didn't open for him or anything. They just called us up on stage to play a song with them. Was Switchfoot. That was a dream come true, man. They're so phenomenal. But yeah, no. And then we brought this band of my buddy Austin. He's got a band called Judges that we brought out on our last run of shows to open for us because they're just these Kentucky boys that sing about beer and like a party, but they all have church jobs. And so I think it's really funny. And they were phenomenal. And
That's
just
awesome.
The crowd loved them.
Nice. Who surprised you the most?
I actually think that John Mark surprised me in a really good way. Just because he is very introspective and his music has progressed to a very like intelligent expression of what he's feeling. And so I was thinking when I met him that he was going to be very up here and maybe a little bit swirly, and kind of unreachable in a way, but he was probably the most inviting, kind person we've ever played a show with. was like, he let me ride in the bus with him a few nights, like with this whole band, just because I had to get there a little early to set up. And they're like, you need a good night of sleep. Hey, come with us and crash in the bus. Like, just so inviting, so kind.
Nice.
Um, I think so. And he was one of my childhood heroes. And so it was just one of those things where it was like, this was a good meet your hero story.
Yeah, you're like, I made it.
Yes, exactly. You have some of those bad meet your hero stories where you're just like, I wish we hadn't met in person.
Right, right.
And with him, I was just like, holy cow, everything and more.
That's awesome. So when did you find out you were playing Creation this year?
Oh man. Let me check when I found it out.
Is that the biggest show you've ever played? Because I think there's probably what 10,000 at least. It probably used to be a lot more than that at one time, but I think it's at least 10,000 still, if not more.
Are you going to be there?
Yeah, I'm planning on it. Actually, me and Dave that owns
Man.
Baltimore Soundstage we're talking about meeting there. I went last year.
Yeah, you got to come through. I found out, I think, it was a while ago. It was one of the first shows that we booked for this year. I think it's one of the biggest. We headlined a show at Liberty University, which I think had like 6,000 people like right there, which was really cool. And then we also are playing Big Church Day Out this year in Sussex, UK, which I think has around the same number, like 10,000, 15,000. But it's like such an honor to be at Creation Fest because I heard about it all the time growing up. And to be there, I think we're just like 2 or 3 before Switchfoot, who are kind of like my Mount Rushmore band.
Sure.
It just feels crazy. And just to be, I went to the Ichthus festivals and the all those big Christian festivals growing up, especially in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels really cool to be a part of it as an artist. And so even the big festivals in general, like we're playing like a cruise next year and stuff like that. It just feels wild to see your name on the same list as someone like Switchfoot.
Right.
Or even like we just did one with Skillet, which I had a Skillet phase, and just seeing your name right next to theirs is really wild. And it hasn't got old yet. That's for sure.
Yeah, man, I bet. So you're going to stay for the whole festival?
I think so. I just know that we're there the same day as Switchfoot.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You may be on the Saturday night. I don't know. You're definitely on the homepage of the website because when my business partner, was like, mention your name. And I was like, well, he's playing Creation Fest. So that means something.
Okay. We're on the 24th of June. I just found that. So that looks like it is. Yeah. Saturday night.
Perfect. That's the biggest night, dude.
Let's go. It's going to be awesome. Pennsylvania too. I love Pennsylvania.
Yeah. That's only about a couple hours from my house. Yeah. I love that. I mean, I went last year and I feel like I'm probably a little bit older than the average now because it's a lot of younger people, but I still love it. For me, it's like, I call it the Christian Coachella.
Christian Coachella, Christchella.
There you go.
That's so funny.
So what's life like on the road, man? Like how many nights of the year are you traveling?
So last year was our first big year. And even then we were still getting our legs under us, figuring out, what it looks like. And so, I think last year we hit 4 or 5 big runs. And when I say big runs, it's not big in comparison to like, a bigger act, but 5 shows here and there. Did the 5 shows opening for King's Kaleidoscope, 12 shows opening for John Mark. And then we had our own 5 show headlining run at the end of the year. And so I think we played about 30 shows last year. So, but coming from Reading, if you're doing one-offs, it's a lot more tumultuous of a travel than if you're coming from like a Nashville or even anywhere on the East Coast. Reading's a small town. We have a municipal airport. It has 2 flights a day that go to San Francisco, 1 every other day that goes to LA, and then 1 that goes to Seattle. And so no matter where you're going, you're doing like a 1 hour, 1.5 hour flight to get to a place that will fly you to your next place. Right. And so average flight day is around 10 to 15 hours coming from Reading. And so you're planning for leaving at 6 a.m. the day before the show to get there, like, because you're working against the time, with the time change. So you'll get there around midnight, you'll go to sleep, you'll play the show, and then it's the same travel day back. And so 1 show equals 3 days, right? Is kind of how it has equaled out. And so there were a lot of one-offs last year. We have a lot less this year. We have more bigger runs that we're kind of planning to limit, the 15-hour travel day and being away from home. But for us, we're still in a van when we tour. And so even if it's 5 shows or 50 shows, we're still in a Sprinter crashing in the parking lot of a hotel. We usually have like 1 or 2 hotel rooms for people to shower in, clean up, and then we're there at midnight. We're leaving at like 6 or 7 to drive to the venue.
Hold on. So let me make sure I understand that. So like when you say you're in a van sleeping in the parking lot, so you have a room for people to shower in, but nobody's sleeping in it?
Well, so if we have depending on how much we're like pooling or the guarantee is,
right,
we'll have 1 room or 2 rooms. We have 4 official band members.
Mm-hmm.
We bring our 5th guy at bass, which is a hired gun. And then we have manager, front of house, and then sometimes photo.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's 4 that are outside of the guaranteed 4. In our van, we usually try to get one with like a couple bunks in it that you can sleep in the back.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's 4 beds in there, or if there's 2 beds in the hotel room, that's people sharing.
Right.
And
sure.
so the last run we did, we had 1 room because we were pretty price conscientious. It was our first headlining run. And so we're like, we don't know if we're going to lose all the money we got.
Right.
And so we get there, 2 guys crash in one bed, 2 guys crash in the other. We all go in and shower, and then we make our way back out to the van.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's nice. Like the beds in the van aren't that bad,
Yeah.
but it gets a little cold. Definitely gets cold in the winter. But yeah, it's a really interesting place to be because we're not even close to being in a bus, but we're definitely could get a hotel room or 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is where the memories are made right now, man.
Yeah, man. Like it's really cool and really fun with the guys. And I think just the camaraderie that you feel being in the same amount of exhaustion as the guys around you is pretty fun sometimes. 5 shows in, 10 shows in, it gets a little bit tiring. And everyone has like 1 or 2 days where they're just kind of like silent until showtime. And we're not going to force communication throughout the day if someone needs their space, just because there's not really any space. And the venues we're playing, like the green rooms, are smaller than my studio I'm in right now. And so, yeah, man, it's fun. It's fun. And it's definitely like a learning process for all of us. All of us are still working something on the side of what we're doing. And so trying to get work done, trying to make income because we don't know what we're getting paid until the run's over.
Right.
And so it's awesome. It's a really cool season that I don't want to wish away, but I'm also like, man, it's going to be nice when we get into that bus.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
People tell you, it's good right now. And I'm like, I hear you. I know it's good. But I really is going to be good when we get there.
Yeah. It's like, what's going to be good is if you guys can go through a day without having a back problem, from being in the van.
Right.
And that's going to be sweet. I mean, even on the John Mark tour, they were in what was called a bandwagon. So it was like a box truck converted into a bus, but there was no shocks in it. And so if you even hit the rumble strip, you're bouncing out of the bed.
Wow.
And so,
box truck converted into a bus. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a good way to die.
Yeah, it's different. Okay. So you guys, I'm guessing everybody's single in the band, right?
So I'm married. I'm married. Yeah. We were about to celebrate our first anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Adam, our guitar player, has a girlfriend, and Daniel, our drummer, has a girlfriend. Cam is riding solo right now. Well, he'll find someone eventually. But everyone's got some ounce of significant other, and doing all this with the wild schedules is always an interesting thing to balance, and it takes a unique person to be able to be on both ends of it. Yeah. And so I'm grateful that my wife also tours with her career. And so we balance each other out and we both understand each other.
Okay. Gotcha. So she's a musician too. What's her name?
So her name's Adita. She is a day-to-day manager of the artist Brooke Lidgertwood.
Okay.
And
so yeah. Brooke was part of, what group was that? Was it
Hillsong Worship?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. She's What a Beautiful Name and songs like that. But
right.
Adita is going on her 7 tour that's coming up next month. And so, we both have exposure to travel and what the schedule is like. and the toll it takes on your energy and stuff like that. So I feel really lucky to have someone who's so supportive and stoked for all of it, but also understands it.
Now, is her name spelled like the shoe?
No, it's singular and it's with an E. So
Okay.
Edita.
Okay.
She was born in Moscow,
Okay.
Russia, and so she came to the States when she was 4 or 3, to Seattle. So she spent most of her life in Seattle.
Now, did y'all meet in the industry?
No, we met in school in Reading. So she was in school in Reading. We met in my last year, well, in my second year, and then we kind of became romantically interested in my last year of school, and got to know each other pretty well throughout, towards the end of lockdown.
Awesome, man. Cool.
Yeah.
So I was looking at some of your songs. It was from Repentance, and it says,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it says, never could move the stars, can't budge the Milky Way. When the lights are gone and my friends move on, you love me. I built my kingdom high, a Babel of modern day. I lost the throne. I built on my own. You love me just the same. This is my repentance. I'm sorry. I love you. I'm coming home. I'm like, dude, you're a poet.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks, man. I wrote that one in the spare room of my parents' house when I was home for Christmas break, of my last year of school. It's a lot of emotional and spiritual turmoil happening at that time. I was like 21, first like real faith crisis. But it was never, is God real? It was always like, who is he? And like, what is church was the big thing. And it feels like it's always the on and off big thing for me. It's like, how did we get here? A similar thing to like, no one's doing anything.
Right.
And so just kind of transitioning into, hey, I've been building this thing on my own. I've kind of created an industry out of loving you. I'm sorry. I'm out of that, And so really interesting time. I think just listening back to that song, it feels really special. I played it the other night in Jacksonville for the first time in forever. And it was just really special. And I always feel emotional when we hit that bridge.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the turmoil. I actually read the post that was, I think it's pinned to the top of your Facebook page, or maybe it was the last one you put up, but you mentioned inner turmoil and being, not feeling in or out. And man, I was like, God, that resonated with me because I was talking to my executive director with City Fam, and it's like, like my home church, I rededicate my life. I bring all these people to them. I figure out this whole City Fam ladder idea. Like, we got to go out. We got to do social events and service events. And then you through the relationship, you bring people back. And I saw hundreds of people get saved. And I just couldn't even get the church to even take an interest in me. It was like even give me a meeting, like it was like, and to the point where I ended up leaving my home church. I just left because I was like, I just felt so overlooked.
Yeah.
Like their biggest tithers came from me, like, and the work that we did. And I love the church. It changed my life. Jesus changed my life. And I love the church. It is the hospital for the broken. But at the same time, I'm so freaking frustrated with them. And it's like, it's this weird relationship where I want to bring people to you, but I'm so like, they're so set in this old freaking way of doing things that doesn't really work anymore. People don't come to church. Rarely. The wheels really got to fall off the wagon before somebody crawls through the emergency room bleeding out going, please help me. You can't do it like that anymore.
Yeah, the high horse is high, but they're riding alone, is what I always feel. And I remember when I was in my first big faith crisis, it was this thing of like, I don't think I've seen anyone who's not either drunk or homeless get saved. And that kind of gave me a little bit of a crisis. And I'm like, are those the only people who want this? What happened? What's going on in here that makes it so unappealing?
Right.
It was just a really interesting thing. Feels like a winners only club sometimes.
Yeah.
If you don't know the Christianese, if you don't say enough adjectives in, when you're praying, you're not seen as anointed. And if the glasses aren't big enough and the hair isn't dyed enough, it's not cool. And so man, I totally resonate with what you're saying. It's so interesting because the church I grew up in was probably the furthest thing from cool I could find. But it was awesome. People would go there and be like, this just feels so genuine. I don't think I've heard someone refer to a church that I've heard of as genuine in a long time.
Right.
And it's kind of hard because I'm like, man, I feel genuine. I know a lot of people who are genuine in these bodies of people. And so what's going on?
Yeah.
You know, where's the disconnect? And it's interesting, man. I totally agree with you.
It's something to do with the way it's been packaged and
Yeah.
presented to the world. And because what happens is, and then you step into that and you feel like you have to act like everybody else. You got to
Yeah.
wear put on the mask, if you want to call it that, even though people that are genuine, they don't, like you said, I feel genuine.
Yeah.
There's people that feel genuine, but they're still acting the way that you're supposed to act when you get there. And it's like, personally, I would go into a church and I could feel them looking down their nose at me because
Yeah.
maybe I was at a bar the night before and I'm like, and I'm thinking, all these people that are here, we brought, and it's, and then trying to get people to not only just respect it, but support it was the big thing for me, where
Yeah.
I think about this guy. And actually, I think my co-founder, he went to Lee University. For a second, I was going to say it was Liberty. It's not. It was Lee.
Yeah.
But his best friend and college roommate, the guy was his best man in wedding. We started City Fam together. All these people were getting saved. And this guy ends up getting the lead pastor position at this mega church in Baltimore through Billy, the relationship through Billy. And this church is balling. I mean, they got millions of dollars in the bank. And they, we've met with them like 5 different times just to ask, could you help us out a little financially? Because I was wanting to pay, like, not even myself, I was wanting to pay Billy so he didn't have to go back to his, continue working a 9 to 5. And, they never gave us $1.
It's hard,
Not
man.
not $1. And I'm like, this is his best friend. That's the lead pastor of this big church. And it's like, I don't get it, man. It's like sometimes where I read the post about the cool church, and there was just a lot that I could relate to in there. And did you come up with anything? Did you figure out? You said
No. If you
no.
find it out, let me know. I'm trying to figure it out, and I feel like it's been a progressive trying to figure it out for a while. I feel very bought in on my spirituality, my faith. It's just a matter of just trying to figure it out with church. I go, but I haven't felt connected in a while to the Big C church. I think a big part of it for me is I have a lot of friends who are not in church. And with playing with the band, you meet, especially the music that we make, that is, I've always said since the beginning, I'm like, man, I want this to be people's first introduction back into relationship with God, or the thing that really makes them resonate when they're really in turmoil. And so I think for me, just seeing how out of pocket it can be sometimes, the Big C, and even just in I probably had 3 months, I really tried to do mainstream Christian music. It wasn't with Gable Price and Friends. I did a publishing deal with Bethel Music, and great people. But I realized with their first post with me in it, I was like, man, the people that follow a lot of this, not everyone, are pretty judgy. In the sense of, I remember the first comment I saw, it was a video of me, and I was just talking about how much of an honor it was to be on the project, because I grew up listening to it. I mowed the lawn listening to the We Will Not Be Shaken record, or the For the Sake of the World record. And I remember the first comment that I saw was, why does he have a nose ring? Is he what did they say? It was something so wild. They said, like, is he is he gay, or is he just part of the world?
Right.
And I responded
Those are
to
my
them.
two choices. Those are my two choices.
That's what I responded. I said, are those my only 2 options? And just stuff like that of, he looks dirty. And I'm like, what? Because I have a mustache? Like, it was just really interesting, where I was like, man, I love the fan base of the band, because even though they have a lot of questions about what I mean, and also concerns that our new record has become more of a rock record than the past one, that's less than it is the people who are, people still are genuinely good and understanding people. Like when they ask like, hey, why did you say this? I'm like, oh, this is what I meant. And they're like, oh, it makes total sense. Thank you. It's never like, well, you shouldn't, because, you know, they're not really Bible thumpers.
Right.
But I think I got thumped a few times right as I was making my way initially into Christian music. And I don't think I'm as as resilient as I thought I was when that happened, where I was just like, man, people are jerks.
Yeah, that hurt.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it hurted. And so, yeah, man, it was, it's so interesting. And I'm like, man, I understand in a way of like why people have a hard time stepping in, because those are the people that are going to be, that are representing it.
Right.
You know, and it's a very interesting, you know, I have in a song where I said, I'm a tooth inside your smile. And I'm like, man, if those are the first thing people are seeing is like, because most people notice teeth more before they notice anything in an interaction, is someone's smile, is their teeth. And I'm like, man, if the first interaction they are having with the God of the universe is the teeth inside his smile, which are each of us, the representatives.
Right.
And the first one, and these ones are twisted, and this one's completely discolored, and all this, they're gonna be like, whoa.
Whoa. Right.
Yeah. I just kind of want to be a good tooth, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, it's really interesting. So I get it. And I also get like, I feel there's a story of Billy Graham. Like he was kind of having a faith crisis early on, and he walked into the woods, put his Bible on a tree stump. And he was like, I swear upon this book, like I will never, like, even when it doesn't make sense, I'm going to believe it. So I feel like for me, like I've had a few of those moments where I'm like, you know what? It doesn't make sense. I don't know if it'll ever make sense, but I'm gonna be in. Right. Whether it's here or somewhere else. It's pretty hard to, you know, be a part of the bride sometimes. But it you know, it is something when I raise kids that I want to be a part of my life. I want to figure out the gray areas that I have, or the hurts that I have, before I'm bringing, you know, my kids and my family into it. I genuinely want to figure it out, because I've loved growing up in church. It's really beautiful. And so, yeah, man, it's a balance of like acknowledging the faults that are there, and also being like, okay, what do I like about it?
I hear you. Now, I mean, what's the alternative, right? Like, you gotta do life together. You know, you need other people. But I do think the church eats their own, man. Like you know, I don't know how many people I've heard criticize Joel Osteen, and whatever, like him or love him. But I'm like, why do we have to attack him? He is a believer, right? I think you mentioned.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And it's people are acceptance magnets. You know, like you will gravitate towards a group of people that accept you, even if you don't believe what they believe. That's why people go into bars, because they're not judging anybody, man. They're like, whatever. They know they're a mess. Yeah. And that's what I would think if other Christians just like, can we just focus on what the other person's doing right? Like the fact that because I've had a lot of people attack me, and I post some pretty controversial stuff. And I think I'm an easy target because I cuss and stuff and whatever. But I'm like, you know, look at the good things I do. I mean, I do a lot of good stuff too. Like, but they'll find like that one thing, like you said, the nose ring. You know, like I made this post not long ago. I said, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. And I put ... but God can. And it's just a popular saying. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard it. Maybe you haven't, but you can.
I have. Yeah.
So I said, but God can. And I was really just trying to say, hey, look, guys, don't discount the transformative power of God in someone's life. And that was the message. But people could not get past the fact that I used the word hoe.
Yep. Yeah. Like, why'd you have to use that? Why? Because I did. Because I get to. You know. Right.
So have you ever you said you had a crisis of faith. What was that like? Did you backslide, or did you just...
I don't think I even knew how to backslide, man. I grew up in church, and I think what I held on to is the beautiful people that I know. I grew up in church, and there was just so many people that I knew that were beautiful people that really, really believed what they believed in. And so I believed them for a while, which was good. You know, that was kind of what I held on to, is like, yeah. So basically I went to Rome in my second year of ministry school on a mission trip. You know, which is kind of a funny thing to say, is like, you know, like we're on a mission trip in Rome. And it was, you know, we did some good things. We ministered to some churches there or whatever, but we like, a lot of it was shopping. A lot of it was eating. And, but we had one day that was like, evangelism day, where it's like, we're going to go into the square, the public square, and we're going to preach the gospel to people if you want to. Was the kind of the, was what everyone was saying. You don't do anything you're uncomfortable with. And so we were there 8 hours or 5 hours or whatever. I don't know how long it was. It's probably not that much, but it felt like that. Me included, no one talked to anyone. No one, people would talk to people and just be nice to them and stuff like that. And then they'd walk away. And at the end of the day, no one preached anything, which is funny on the mission trip, and
Right.
then we get back in the van and they say, hey, we got church tomorrow. Who wants to speak and who wants to lead worship? Every hand goes up.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of it for me. I was like, do I like church because I know they agree with me? And I know, and I like being with like-minded people because I love God a lot when I'm singing the songs and everyone's,
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm out in the square and I'm not sure how it's going to be responded to, lip locked, and so that was the beginning of it for me, is like, do I like this because I'm good at it? Like, have I gotten good at God was my big thing, which was really hard to go through, especially at 20. And so I went home for the summer and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out this faith crisis. I'd already been accepted for an internship in my last year of school. And so I was locked into going back. I think if I hadn't gotten an internship yet, I wouldn't have gone back. Just because, it was hard. It was real hard. And so I went back and I had a meeting with the guy I was interning for, and I told him everything. I said, I am not sure what I believe. Everything feels like an existential crisis. Everything feels like a faith crisis. And so kind of a turning point, and it still, progressively kept going for about a year and a half. But the big thing that I held on to was, he said, okay, you're thinking about all the big lofty thoughts up here. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why, are we predestined, or was it free will? All these big things that is really hard to find out on, or you might just never find out. And He was like, you will never figure that out. These questions you're never going to figure out. Let's go all the way down. What is the most elementary belief that you know? I was like, I don't know. He's like, do you believe God's real, or is that a question? I was like, oh, no. Like, that's not what my problem is. Like, my question is, why do we do it? All this. He's like, so God's real? I'm like, yeah. What's the most elementary belief within that? That He loves me. Okay. For the next few months, every time something up here comes up, I'm not asking you to be in denial, but just put it aside. And before you approach that, think for a second. God is real and He loves me. God is real and He loves me. God is real and He loves me. And I would say that until I was ready to think about this again. Because sometimes, it's a baby out with the bathwater scenario. It's like you focus so much up here and this all feels very gray and unknown that down here starts to blend in with it. But when you really get down to the elementary belief, I want to like church. I believe that church is important. Mm-hmm. Why are people so judgmental? Blah, blah, all this. Why don't they want to play new songs? All this stuff. I want to believe, and so that was kind of my turning point. And so I've still wrestled on and off, but it's never been with my faith. It's been with my relationship with my faith. Is what is my engagement level? What are the things that I do out of my faith? But my faith has always stayed there. I know God is real and I know He loves me. Right. And so that was the crisis for me, was the figuring out, okay, what is real to me? I stopped leading worship for a while at that point. And I was like, okay, until I figure out this, I'm not going to do any of the things I'm good at or like that make me feel comfortable within this. I'm just going to be. And so it was really beautiful and it was really life-giving. And I think it's set me up well to now be 4 years post faith crisis and still a believer, still struggling with a lot of the same questions, but down here never gets touched. Like He's real and He loves me. Does that make sense?
Totally, dude. I can relate so much to that. From the moment I got baptized in the Spirit, I'd never questioned if God was real and if Jesus was who He said He was. I mean, I've had lots of questions about things that have happened, and He told me about this girl. This is 23 years ago. Told me she was my person. She lived in California. I was in Baltimore. She had moved from Baltimore to Cali a year earlier. I waited for her. I thought, well, all right, I'll wait for her. And Never happened. Never got with her. 100% he told me her. And I'm like, what did that mean? But it led to the biggest
Yeah.
blessings of my life, led to me writing the book and City Fam, all things I would never have known had I not had a prolonged period of being single, and I wouldn't have done it. You know,
Yeah.
I would have got lonely and dated and shacked up with somebody, or even if I didn't mean, even if I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. Lots of questions, but at the end of the day, I feel the same way. You know, I know I don't even question, is God real? I'm like, is he trustworthy? Like that's the thing I think
Yeah.
about. Is like, he's got perfect character. He's perfect. He can't be improved upon. He knows everything. All right, I don't understand, but all right. I'm like, I think that's the greatest compliment you can give God, is when you're like, I don't understand, but I trust you.
Yeah.
That's the greatest compliment that you can give him.
Well, that's the first ounce of, I feel like that is like, for me in those moments, it was really a thing of, oh, this is the first time I actually have to have faith.
Right.
I cannot answer this, but I know there's something good behind it that I can't understand.
Mm,
I do not need to understand right now.
right.
I don't know if I'll ever understand in my time on earth. But when we hit eternity, it's like, okay, we'll figure it out then. But yeah, man, I completely agree. Is like the trust, like he is real and he is trustworthy. And once you really accept that, a lot of the big questions get a little less terrifying. They're still a little scary, still definitely. The
I think
fear
it's like
comes with
the thing is, the only thing you can really give God is your trust. Like, because what can you give him? What does he need from you? Like, you can't
yeah,
give him money. I mean, he doesn't need your money. Like, it's the only thing you can withhold from him, right? That he really is, like, and I think that was the original sin, because Adam and Eve was like, they thought God was holding out on them, so they didn't trust him. They didn't, trust his character, and then of
yeah.
course that led to all the mess that we're in. So I feel like
Yeah,
that's, yeah.
we have a song on the record called "Easy to Love You," and it's written in a very love song way, where it can really go either way depending on what the listener where they're at on the faith spectrum. And but I find it easy to love you, but not so easy to trust you.
Hmm.
Where it's like love feels easy, trust feels terrifying.
Right.
I knew that I loved my wife before I knew that she wasn't going to hurt me. Because like how many people have been in love and they've gotten hurt?
Mm-hmm.
But but in the song "Easy to Love You" is just this, you talk of houses on hills, but who's paying for that? Who's paying those bills? And it's just kind of this whole thing of like, I love you. I do not. I'm working on the trust part, but we'll figure it out. And so yeah, man, I could not agree more.
Mm. So why did you call the record "Consequence of Being Alive"? Is that it?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
consequence of being alive. So to me, I was thinking about life. And a lot of this record was, I wrote a lot of it while we were planning our wedding and while we were, early in marriage. And I think for me, everything felt like it was making a little more sense. Because there's, growing up, like there's always the question of, I feel like you think about relationships so much, and there's so much with that. But I think with this record, I just really wanted to write a life record. And so I started thinking about life and how much contrast it holds and how beautiful contrast is. And so like, just along the fact of like, when like you have a sore throat and you're like, I did not realize how lucky I was when I didn't have this sore throat.
Right.
And you start to think about, and then when you don't have the sore throat, you're like, oh, I can breathe and, swallow beverages without it burning. And so I think that inspired a lot of, joy because you've experienced pain.
Mm-hmm.
And joy feels so much more euphoric knowing the lows, and the lows feel so much lower because you've known the highs. Love feels so much stronger because you've known loneliness. Loneliness feels so much more like heavy because you've known love. And it's just like this whole thing of, and so I wrote the lyric of, you live, you love, you lose, and that's the consequence of being alive. It's like, it was just kind of this acceptance of what a beautiful thing it is to feel pain, to feel joy, to feel acceptance, to feel loneliness, all of these things, because they're all intertwined in this beautiful mountainscape that is life. And so the consequence of being alive is just kind of phrasing it in like a, oh, ain't it a shame? You feel everything, kind of a little bit of a sassy way to say it, but it's a consequence of being alive.
Yeah.
Um,
I like it.
dang, you feel sad. That's, what a shame. We feel happy. Man, it's a good thing that you felt sad before. It's all these beautiful things tied up into one bow.
Yeah. It reminds me of being in Maryland. I'm like, I like living in Maryland because we get the seasons change, right? Like you appreciate the spring when that first warm day hits and after it's been cold, you're like, oh man, this is nice. It's kind of like you
Yes.
said, like you don't, until you get sick, you don't really appreciate health. But
Yep.
I think the contrast is too, because like, so I lived, and I've seen this in a lot of people's lives that I used to know, that people that live these crazy, dopamine, like, I mean, my life was just a party. It was drugs,
Yeah.
and girls, and multiple girls, and
Yeah.
and then you go to being a Christian, and that's, oh my gosh, it was such a culture shock for me. Like it was really painful. Threw me into a deep depression because I knew what the high was, and
Yeah.
and it was like, and I know people that experience that high, and they always look back to those days, like, and they can't get past. They can't get past it. I think that's why we're not supposed to go there. Like you're not, because God doesn't. They say the comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
But like once you take it to that level, and I've seen that even in the celebrities that have been interviewed. I was watching, I think it was Pauly Shore. Somebody was on Joe Rogan not long ago, and he was talking about how much fun it was. He's like, I went onto this set, and he's like, he's depressed now because he's not the man anymore.
Yeah.
He's like, it was so much fun when he was Pauly Shore on MTV, and and you can never, he can at least recapture that, but it's all fleeting anyway. One thing I tell people, it's only fun while you're doing it, and then you wake up and it's empty, and you got to do it.
Yeah.
And then you got to
It's
do
the
more.
Olympic curse is that most Olympians get into legal trouble or a deep depression or something like that right after the Olympics because they had this high and then they just don't know who they are anymore because they've been training for this one event their whole life.
Right.
I had someone in a neighborhood that I grew up in that was in the Olympics, and then like 2 months later got into some legal trouble for just standing on a hill throwing rocks at cars. I'm like, how did you get there? They figure it out. They do their time or whatever, pay their fees, and they're a great person. But it's just like, I feel like some people, I feel like we chase a lot of highs.
Right.
I know a lot of people who have been heavy users in the past, and they say that the whole time you're just chasing that first high that you had.
Yep.
And you just keep doing it, hoping that you can find some way to feel what you felt the first time.
Right.
And so it's so interesting.
Yeah, it totally. You gotta sit there and sometimes marinate in whatever the feeling is, and it goes away. Feelings aren't facts. That's what I've learned. You have to be feeling one way, and take a nap, or a couple hours later feel a completely different way, and then wondering why.
Drink your coffee and you're good.
Yeah, exactly. So, man, this was awesome, dude. I'm very excited to meet you on April 2nd. Again, guys, Gable's going to be at Cult Classic Brewing over in Centerville, Maryland, just outside of Baltimore. If you can make it here, come on down. We're going to do a group trip. You can use the code CityFam for $5 off your tickets. The link will be in the show notes. Tell everybody where they can find you. Actually, what are you working on now? You working on another record? You writing songs? What are you doing?
We finished the record back in November, and so we're working on getting ready for a big tour. I'm writing songs here and there with other artists, but right now we're just pushing the consequence of being a live record and getting ready to show it to a bunch of people on the road.
Nice.
They can find us on Instagram. I don't think we have Twitter. TikTok, Facebook, Gable Price and Friends. You can follow me too, just Gable Price. But yeah, man, I'm so stoked to meet everyone from Baltimore, Centerville, metro area, and it's gonna be sweet.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't wait. And it must be cool knowing that, like, all you need is that one big hit, dude. And you're like, bam, right?
Yeah.
I did see Corey Asbury as one of your, was singing on a song of yours.
Yeah, we've done a couple songs together. Corey's a real good dude. But yeah, all it takes is the one song. We're hoping we have it. And if we don't, we're going to keep going.
Well, I'm praying that it comes out between now and April 2nd because it'll make it easier to sell tickets for us.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Rob. You're awesome, man.
So everybody, you can find him at Gable Price and Friends on Instagram. And then also the website is gablepriceandfriends.com. And hopefully we'll see you guys on April 2nd. And you and I will definitely see each other, and I'll
sir.
buy, buy you a beer and we'll chop it
Can't
up.
wait. Can't wait to have a beverage together.
All right. Thanks for coming on.